Welcome back to SpiritLifter, where today we're switching things up with our first triple header. As I was walking my dog between the heavy showers from the storms we've had here in Germany, I remembered that spring will soon be giving way to summer. While I welcome this for several reasons, the transition from one season to another reminded me that certain brewed treats will be more difficult to find in the upcoming weeks. One style of beer associated with springtime is the strong and malty Bock. Taking a recommendation from a gentleman who fondly remembers drinking a particular brand brewed near his hometown, I picked up a selection so that we might compare their qualities. Before we get to the brews, though, where do they come from? Einbecker, no surprise, comes from Einbeck in Niedersachsen. The brewery comes from a strong tradition in the city, which even as far back as the 14th century was exporting their surplus brew to faraway locales such as Amsterdam and Reval. The first explicit mention of Einbecker is dated precisely to April 28, 1378, when a receipt marked a transaction where 2 tons of Einbecker beer were sold to the city of Zela. Allegedly, Einbecker brew was worthy of praise from Martin Luther himself, who said upon sipping, "Der beste Trank, den einer kennt, der wird Einbecker Bier genannt." The name Bock has its own unique history. In 1612, a master brewer from Einbeck was enticed to Munich so that he could brew Einpökisches Bier. The local dialect of Einbeck tweaked the pronunciation to Ohrenpökisches, or Ohrenpock for short. Eventually, the P became voiced, and an Ohrenbock became the go-to phrase for locals of Einbeck to order a brew that was typically a shade stronger than most others. Today, Einbecker has a celebrated line of traditional German styles, with their most famous being their line of Bock beers. The 3 featured today all clock in at 6.5% alcohol by volume. Bock usually refers to a beer with an alcohol content exceeding 6%, sometimes pushing limits past what can be considered a beer. Perhaps this is appropriate, as Bock can also refer to mountain goats. No surprise then that brews this strong can make you feel like you got rammed by one if you don't respect their potency. Of these 3, I have previously tried 2. So we're saving the one I have not had for last. First up, the Mai-Ur-Bock pours a bronze color. It has a pleasant sweetness, likely owing to the use of medium roasted barley malt. Flavor is mostly a smooth caramel, and just as enjoyable in June as the month it is named after. Second, the Ur-Bock Dunkel is appropriately a shade darker. It has a similar initial sweetness to that of the Mai-Bock, but it finishes drier. Venturing a guess, I would suspect that this darker color comes from burned sugars that would otherwise ferment in the mash, meaning the sugar content is not as saturated. This allows the yeast to fully attenuate fermentable sugars before the alcohol content inhibits their ability to multiply. Finally, the Ur-Bock Hell may be the lightest of these brews by color, but it stands out as the most bitter. Not to say that it punches as hard as a double IPA or anything, but if you order it with the intent to dodge the hop bullet, think again. By now, you might be wondering, okay, so which one's the best? At the risk of sounding overly diplomatic, I can't decide. Like fine cuisine, beer is bound up in memory. Taste is a sense strongly tied to time, geography, and our experiences. This is especially true for brews that are associated with, and often only available, during certain seasons. Give them a try next time you make it to the fatherland, maybe. Toast with a friend. Pair them with a gourmet meal. Crack one open under the shade of a leafy tree. My point is, make your own memories with these. Every one of these brews is a welcome addition to the seasonal rotation of Bock beers that debut in the spring. Most especially the last few days, I am glad to have seen a few more beer gardens open up. Spring this year has delivered a most welcome gift. A sense of optimism. And I swear, that's not just these 3 beers talking for me. Thank you kindly for watching. Maybe if I can get my vaccine before the summer solstice next Monday, I'll celebrate with a Bock. I can see it now. I walk out of the clinic, crack open a brew, raise it up high, and say, "Cheers, Doc."